Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. What if everything you've been taught about money is completely, fundamentally wrong? What if the reason you're struggling financially right now has nothing to do with the economy, your boss, your education, or the neighborhood you grew up in, but everything to do with what's happening inside your own mind? Here's a frightening truth. Most people will spend their entire lives working hard, paying bills, and dying broke. Not because they lacked opportunity, but because they had a money blueprint that was quietly sabotaging them every single day. Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind cracked the code on this decades ago. And today, we're going to break down all 17 wealth files, one by one, so you can finally understand what the rich know that you don't. This is the video that could change everything for you. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on Wisdom Beacon, because this is exactly the kind of content we live for. Wealth file number 1. Rich people believe, I create my life. Poor people believe, life happens to me. Let's start at the very foundation, the bedrock of every financial outcome you've ever experienced or will ever experience. This first wealth file isn't about investing strategies or income streams. It's about something far more fundamental, personal responsibility. Harv Eker opens Secrets of the Millionaire Mind with this declaration because he knows that until you accept this belief, truly, deeply, in your bones, nothing else in the book will matter. You can read every finance book ever written, attend every seminar, watch every YouTube video, but if you still secretly believe that life is happening to you instead of by you, you will stay stuck. So what does it actually mean to believe I create my life? It means you accept that your current financial reality, whatever it looks like right now, is the product of your decisions, your habits, your mindset, and your actions. Not the economy, not your parents, not your ex, not your race, your gender, or your zip code. You. It's a radical, sometimes uncomfortable idea, and it's the truth. Now, I want to be clear. Accepting personal responsibility doesn't mean ignoring systemic inequalities or pretending that privilege doesn't exist. Those things are real. But here's the crucial distinction. You can acknowledge that the playing field isn't perfectly level and still choose to take full ownership of how you play the game. Because the moment you give away your power by blaming external forces, you simultaneously give away your ability to change anything. Think about the people you know who are stuck financially. Listen carefully to how they talk. The economy is terrible. My boss never gives me a raise. Rich people are just lucky. I never get any breaks. These aren't just casual complaints. They are declarations of victimhood. They are the verbal fingerprints of a poverty mindset. And the insidious thing is, every time you repeat these statements, you're reinforcing neural pathways that make it harder and harder to see the opportunities that are literally right in front of you. Contrast that with the language of wealthy people. They say things like, what can I learn from this situation? How can I create more value? What do I need to do differently? Notice the difference? Rich people ask empowering questions. Poor people make disempowering statements. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. Eker introduces the concept of the victim trinity, 3 behaviors that keep people stuck in the victim mentality. The first is blaming. When something goes wrong, victims look outward. If they blame their parents, the government, the system, their spouse, the weather, anything to avoid looking in the mirror. The second is complaining. Complainers are professional energy vampires. They suck the life out of every room they enter, and they wonder why successful people don't want to be around them. The third is justifying. This is the sneakiest of the 3. Justifiers don't just complain. They have logical, reasonable, airtight explanations for why they can't succeed. I would have been rich, but... Sound familiar? Here's a powerful exercise Eker suggests. For 1 full week, every time something goes wrong or doesn't go your way, ask yourself this question instead of looking for someone to blame. How did I create this? It will feel uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is where growth lives. You might discover that you've been chronically undercharging for your services. You might realize you've been tolerating a toxic work environment that's draining your creativity. You might see that you've been procrastinating on that business idea for 3 years while complaining that you never get opportunities. The moment you shift from, why is this happening to me, to how am I creating this? everything changes. Suddenly, you're not a passenger in your own life. You're the driver. And drivers can change direction. Passengers cannot. Practical application. Start a daily journaling practice. Each morning, write down one area of your finances or life where you've been playing victim. Then write 3 specific actions you can take this week to take back control. This isn't about self-blame, it's about self-empowerment. There's a massive difference. Self-blame says, I'm bad. Self-empowerment says, I have the power to change this. Start there. Everything else in this video depends on it. Wealth file number 2. Rich people play the money game to win. Poor people play to not lose. Imagine 2 basketball teams taking the court. One team comes out with fire in their eyes, running plays aggressively, pushing to score as many points as possible. The other team spends the whole game trying to not fall too far behind, playing defense, playing it safe, afraid of making mistakes. Which team do you think wins more often? Now apply that exact same dynamic to money, because that's exactly what's happening. This second wealth file cuts to the heart of something deeply psychological, your primary financial motivation. Are you trying to create wealth? Or are you simply trying to avoid poverty? Because those 2 goals, while they sound similar, produce radically different behaviors, different decisions, and ultimately radically different outcomes. When you play to win, you ask questions like, how can I dramatically increase my income? What investments will grow my wealth fastest? How can I build multiple revenue streams? What big opportunity am I missing? These questions are expansive. They open your mind to possibilities. When you play not to lose, you ask questions like, how do I make sure I don't run out of money? Is this safe enough? What if this doesn't work? What if I lose everything? These questions are contractive. They close your mind to opportunity and keep you locked in a defensive crouch. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Playing not to lose is actually the riskier strategy in the long run. Think about inflation. Every year, the purchasing power of money sitting in a savings account erodes. Playing it completely safe, keeping your money under the mattress, so to speak, is actually a guaranteed way to slowly lose wealth over time. The person who plays not to lose and keeps everything in a low-yield savings account will actually be poorer in 20 years than the person who learned to intelligently invest and take calculated risks. Eker points out that most middle-class people have a goal of comfort. They want to make enough to be comfortable. But comfortable is a trap. Comfortable means you're not growing. And in a world that's constantly changing, if you're not growing, you're falling behind. Rich people don't aim for comfortable, they aim for extraordinary. They set goals that scare them a little. They intentionally put themselves in situations where they have to rise to the occasion. This doesn't mean being reckless. There's a crucial difference between playing to win and gambling recklessly. Playing to win means making bold, educated, strategic moves. It means developing skills, acquiring knowledge, and then acting decisively. It means being willing to fail and fail again, because you know that every failure is information, and information is a tool. The playing not to lose mindset also shows up in careers. How many people do you know who stay in a job they hate because it's stable? Who don't ask for a raise because they're afraid of rejection? Who have a side business idea but never launch it because what if it fails? This is playing not to lose, and it's slowly killing their potential. Practical strategy. Conduct a minimum goal audit. Look at the financial goals you've set for yourself. Are they truly ambitious, or are they the bare minimum you think you can get away with? Research consistently shows that people who set big, bold goals, even when they don't fully reach them, end up far ahead of people who set small, safe goals and hit them. Your goals are permission slips. Make them bigger. Additionally, start practicing calculated risk-taking in small ways. Take an online course in a field that scares you. Start that blog or YouTube channel. Make that cold call. Pitch that idea. Each small act of playing to win rewires your brain to become more comfortable with boldness. And boldness is the currency of the wealthy. Wealth file number 3. Rich people are committed to being rich. Poor people want to be rich. Everyone wants to be rich. Ask 100 people on the street if they'd like more money, and 100 hands go up. But wanting is cheap. Commitment is expensive. It costs you comfort, certainty, time, and sometimes relationships. And that's exactly why so few people ever actually become wealthy. Eker draws a razor-sharp distinction between wanting something and being committed to it. Wanting is passive. It's the daydream you have while scrolling Instagram. It's the someday I'll that lives permanently in the future, never quite arriving. Commitment, on the other hand, is active. It's a decision made at the level of your identity. It's who you are, not just what you wish for. Think about fitness. Millions of people want six-pack abs. A tiny percentage has them. The difference isn't genetic, it's commitment. The committed person doesn't ask, should I go to the gym today? It's not a negotiation. It's just what they do. They've made a non-negotiable decision, and their behavior follows automatically. Wealth works the same way. Eker challenges his readers to examine their commitment level by asking a brutal question: what are you willing to give up to be rich? Because becoming wealthy always requires a trade-off, at least in the beginning. Time spent building a business is time not spent watching Netflix. Money invested in education or assets is money not spent on dining out or a new car. The uncomfortable truth is that you can tell everything about someone's true level of commitment by looking at their calendar and their bank statements. There's also a deeper layer here. Many people subconsciously don't want to be rich. They say they do, but buried beneath the surface are contradictory beliefs. Rich people are greedy. Money changes people. My family will resent me if I make too much. Who am I to have that kind of success? These hidden beliefs act like an invisible hand pulling you back every time you start to get ahead. Eker calls this your money blueprint, and if it's set against wealth, no amount of wanting will overcome it. To move from wanting to committed, you need to do three things. First, get crystal clear on your why. Not, I want to be rich so I can buy nice things. Go deeper. Why do you really want financial freedom? Is it to give your children opportunities you never had? To fund a mission that matters to you? To never have to worry about a medical bill again? The more emotionally resonant your why, the more powerful your commitment. Second, make public declarations. Tell people what you're going for. This creates accountability and, honestly, a healthy dose of social pressure. When you tell 5 people, I'm building a business and I will generate 6 figures by the end of next year, you've now got something to prove, not just to yourself, but to your community. Third, eliminate the escape routes. Committed people don't leave themselves an easy out. They burn the boats. This doesn't mean being irresponsible. It means structuring your environment so that quitting becomes more painful than continuing. Set up automatic investments. Hire an accountability coach. Join a mastermind group. Make success the path of least resistance. Here's the most powerful reframe from this wealth file. Wealth isn't something that happens to you. It's something you decide to create. And decisions, real ones, not wishful thinking, happen at the level of commitment. Make the decision. Be all in. Because half committed is just another way of saying fully uncommitted. Wealth file number 4. Rich people think big. Poor people think small. Here's a question nobody asks you in school. How big are you allowed to think? The answer, of course, is that nobody sets a limit on the size of your thinking. And yet, most people operate with an invisible ceiling on their vision, a default setting that tells them to keep their dreams proportionate, reasonable, realistic. And that ceiling is one of the most expensive things they'll ever own. Harv Eker's 4th wealth file delivers a simple but seismic truth. The size of your thinking determines the size of your results. Not your talent, not your resources, not your connections. Your thinking. Because before anything else can get bigger, your vision has to get bigger first. Consider this. If you want to earn $5,000 a month, you think about solving a problem for a handful of people. If you want to earn $50,000 a month, you think about solving a problem for thousands of people. If you want to earn $500,000 a month, you think about solving a problem for millions of people. The logic is beautiful in its simplicity. The more people you serve, the more wealth you create. And you can't serve more people if you can't first imagine serving more people. Eker uses a memorable analogy. A universe of abundance is like a gigantic buffet. The buffet has everything. Mountains of opportunity, rivers of possibility. The difference between the rich and the poor isn't that the rich got a bigger plate. They started with the same plate. But the rich person fills their plate to the brim. The poor person takes a little bit politely, afraid of appearing greedy, worried they'll take too much, telling themselves they don't need that much anyway. Then they sit down and wonder why they're still hungry. Small thinking also shows up in how people value themselves. People with small mindsets undercharge for their services. They accept the first job offer without negotiating. They take the safe, predictable career path instead of building something of their own. They ask for a $2 raise when they deserve $10. They settle for a promotion when they should be starting a company. At every turn, small thinking leads to small action, which leads to small results. Now, let's challenge something. Many people confuse thinking big with being unrealistic. They think small because they don't want to be delusional or set themselves up for disappointment. But here's the nuance. Thinking big doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to be imprisoned by your current reality. Your current reality is a snapshot of your past thinking. Your future reality is a product of your current thinking. If you keep thinking the same small thoughts, you'll keep getting the same small results. Albert Einstein famously said that problems cannot be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. How do you start thinking bigger? Begin with your peer group. Jim Rohn said, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If your 5 closest friends are all stuck at the same income level, all complaining about the same problems, all playing it safe, your thinking will match theirs. Deliberately seek out people who are operating at a higher level. Go to events, join communities, read biographies of visionaries. Let their thinking contaminate yours. Next, practice the 10x exercise. Whatever goal you currently have, multiply it by 10. If you want to earn $80,000 this year, write down $800,000. Don't immediately ask how. Just sit with the number. Let your brain start working on the problem at that new scale. You'll be surprised by the ideas that emerge when you give your mind a bigger target. Finally, remember Eker's core message. The world doesn't need more people playing small. Playing small doesn't protect anyone. It doesn't make the world more fair. It doesn't make you more humble. It just keeps you broke while your potential sits on the shelf gathering dust. Give yourself permission to think bigger. The size of your impact is limited only by the size of your vision. Wealth file number 5. Rich people focus on opportunities. Poor people focus on obstacles. Here is a fascinating truth about the human brain. It finds what it's looking for. Scientists call this the reticular activating system, the part of your brain that acts as a filter for the 8 million bits of information your senses process every second. You consciously perceive only a tiny fraction of all that data. Which fraction? The stuff your brain has been trained to look for. This neurological reality means that your focus isn't just a choice. It's literally shaping the reality you experience. And this is exactly why the 5th wealth file is so important. If your dominant mental pattern is, what could go wrong? If obstacles are the primary lens through which you see the world, your brain will dutifully serve up obstacles everywhere you look. Opportunities will be invisible to you, not because they don't exist, but because you've trained your filter to screen them out. Conversely, if you train your mind to scan for opportunity, you will see it in places that look like dead ends to everyone else. Think about the great entrepreneurs of our time. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, most people saw catastrophe. But a small group of investors and entrepreneurs saw opportunity. They bought undervalued assets, started companies that thrived in recessions, created solutions for newly urgent problems. When the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the world, millions of businesses collapsed, but others exploded. Telemedicine, e-commerce, online education, home fitness equipment, the same reality, completely different focus. Eker makes a critical point. Action cures fear, and rich people act on opportunities before they feel 100% ready. They don't wait until all the stars align. They don't wait until they have enough money, enough time, enough knowledge. They take imperfect action and course correct along the way. Poor people focused on obstacles wait, and waiting feels safe, but it's actually the riskiest move of all because opportunities have expiration dates. Let's talk about what obstacle focus actually costs you. Every time you encounter a new idea and your first thought is, but what about, or yeah, but, you're paying a tax on your potential. The yeah but tax is brutal. It compounds over time. 5 years of yeah but can cost you a fortune. Think of a business idea you had 5 years ago that you dismissed as too risky. Is someone else doing it now? Making money from it? That gap between the opportunity you saw and the result you didn't pursue is the cost of obstacle focus. Here's a practical reframe technique. Every time you catch yourself thinking about why something won't work, discipline yourself to add this phrase, and the way I can make this work is. This one linguistic shift does something remarkable. It doesn't deny the obstacle, it acknowledges it, and then pivots to solution thinking. This requires a lot of capital L, and the way I can make this work is to find investors or start small and reinvest profits. I don't have the skills for this, and the way I can make this work is to partner with someone who does or learn the skills over the next 6 months. Rich people also understand that most obstacles are smaller in reality than they appear in our minds. Fear has a powerful magnifying effect. That phone call you've been putting off for weeks, it'll take 3 minutes. That conversation you're dreading, it'll probably go better than you imagined. The investment you're afraid to make, the loss, if it happens, will be survivable, and the gain could be life-changing. Action shrinks obstacles. Inaction inflates them. Develop the habit of daily opportunity journaling. Each evening, write down 3 opportunities you noticed that day, no matter how small. A conversation that could lead somewhere. A problem you heard someone complain about. Problems are always opportunities in disguise. A skill you could develop. A trend emerging in your industry. Over time, this practice rewires your reticular activating system to scan for possibility instead of peril. Within weeks, you'll be shocked by how many doors appear in walls that used to look completely solid. Wealth file number 6. Rich people admire other rich and successful people. Poor people resent them. This is the wealth file that makes people the most uncomfortable. And that discomfort, that's exactly why it's so important. Because buried in your emotional reaction to other people's success is one of the most revealing diagnostics of your own money blueprint. Here's the test. When you see someone driving an expensive car, what's your first thought? When someone in your social circle posts about their luxury vacation, their new home, their business success, what emotion arises immediately before you can police it? If your honest answer is anything like, must be nice, they probably didn't earn it, show off, or the rich get richer while people like us suffer. Congratulations, you've just discovered a wealth-destroying belief that has been quietly sabotaging you, possibly for your entire adult life. Eker explains the mechanics of resentment beautifully. You cannot attract what you resent. Think about it from a purely logical standpoint. If deep down, you believe that wealthy people are greedy, corrupt, or morally inferior, then on some level, you don't want to become one of them. Every time you get close to real financial success, some part of your subconscious pumps the brakes. Wait, if I make too much money, am I becoming one of those people I despise? And so, invisibly, you self-sabotage. You make bad investments. You overspend right when you're building momentum. You unconsciously push away high-income clients or business partners. The origin of resentment toward wealth is almost always cultural programming. Perhaps you grew up hearing, money is the root of all evil. Perhaps your parents talked about rich people with contempt. Perhaps you absorbed the cultural narrative that wealth is inherently exploitative. These beliefs become part of your identity, and your identity is the most powerful force shaping your behavior. Now, here's the liberating reframe. Rich people aren't some alien species. They're people, with flaws, fears, and struggles like everyone else, who developed certain skills, adopted certain beliefs, and made certain choices. When you see their success, you're seeing the effect. The cause is years of discipline, learning, risk-taking, and persistence. When you admire that, truly genuinely admire it, you open yourself to learning from it. You begin to ask, how did they do that? What can I learn from their approach? What do they know that I don't yet? Admiration is aspirational fuel. Resentment is aspirational poison. One fills your tank, one drains it. The rich tend to admire and study other rich people. They read their biographies, attend their talks, seek their mentorship. Why? Because admiration creates connection, and connection creates opportunity. Poor people resent the rich and therefore avoid them, cutting themselves off from the very mentors, networks, and knowledge systems that could change their lives. There's also a spiritual dimension here that Eker touches on. Resentment is a state of lack. It's rooted in the belief that there isn't enough to go around, so anyone who has more than you is somehow taking from you. But wealth is not a fixed pie. The economy is not zero-sum. When someone creates a wildly successful company, they don't deplete some finite reserve of success. They actually expand the pool. They create jobs. They create value. They stimulate innovation. Their win is not your loss. Practice this. Find one wealthy or successful person each week, ideally someone you might have previously resented, and genuinely study their story. Read their biography or watch their interviews. Not to agree with everything they've done, but to extract the mindset, principles, and strategies that drove their success. You'll be surprised how quickly admiration replaces resentment when you see the full human story behind someone's financial success. And with admiration comes a far more powerful belief. If they can do it, so can I. Wealth file number 7. Rich people associate with positive, successful people. Poor people associate with negative or unsuccessful people. You are being sculpted by the people around you right now. Not metaphorically, literally. Neuroscience has proven that human brains are profoundly social organs. We unconsciously mirror the emotional states, thought patterns, and behaviors of the people we spend the most time with. This process happens mostly below conscious awareness, which is what makes it simultaneously so powerful and so dangerous. Jim Rohn's famous quote, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with," has been validated repeatedly in research on peer influence, social contagion, and behavioral economics. Your income, your health habits, your level of ambition, your sense of what's possible, all of these are significantly influenced by the company you keep. This isn't a judgment, it's physics. Eker breaks this down simply. If you spend your time with negative people, you will adopt negative beliefs and behaviors. If you spend your time with successful people, you will adopt success-oriented beliefs and behaviors. The wealthy understand this at a deep level, which is why they are intentional, sometimes ruthlessly intentional, about their social environment. Think about the social ecosystems of wealthy versus struggling people. In a struggling social group, conversations tend to revolve around problems, complaints, gossip, the news, and shared misery. There's a conformity pressure. If you get too ambitious, too positive, or too visibly successful, you get cut down. "Who do you think you are?" is the anthem of this environment. It's a tall poppy syndrome. Anything that grows too tall gets cut back to size. In successful social environments, conversations tend to revolve around ideas, opportunities, strategies, investments, and lessons learned. People celebrate each other's wins. They challenge each other to level up. They share resources, make introductions, and create joint ventures. Being around ambitious, successful people raises your baseline for what's normal and possible. When everyone around you is building businesses and generating passive income, that becomes your reference point, not the exception, but the expectation. Now, and this is important, this wealth file is not about being a snob or abandoning people you love who haven't yet found financial success. It's about being intentional and protective of your mental environment. You can love your family members who struggle with money while also limiting the amount of negative financial conversation you engage in with them. You can be compassionate toward friends who are stuck while also making sure your primary growth community consists of people who are moving forward. How do you build a successful peer group when you're not yet in those circles? Start small and start online. Find communities on Reddit, LinkedIn, Facebook, Discord, centered around investing, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and career growth. Attend local networking events. Read books about rich, successful people and let their thinking influence yours. Find a mentor. Many successful people are willing to share their experience if you approach them with genuine curiosity and respect. The concept of a mastermind group is particularly powerful here. Napoleon Hill described it in Think and Grow Rich as 2 or more minds working in harmony toward a common goal. Find 3 to 5 people who are similarly ambitious. Form a regular meeting structure, hold each other accountable, and share knowledge and connections. The compounding effect of a great mastermind group is extraordinary. Many of the world's most successful businesses were born in rooms where a handful of like-minded people dared to dream together. Audit your social circle honestly. Who do you spend the most time with? Are they lifting you higher or pulling you down? Are they expanding your thinking or contracting it? Are they celebrating your growth or subtly discouraging it? This audit might be uncomfortable, but it's one of the highest return exercises you'll ever do. Your network is your net worth, and that's not just a clever rhyme. Wealth file number 8. Rich people are willing to promote themselves and their value. Poor people think negatively about selling and promotion. Let's talk about a word that makes millions of people cringe: selling. Say it out loud. Sales, selling, salesperson. Notice what happens in your body. For most people, there's a slight recoil, a subtle but real discomfort, and that discomfort is costing them a fortune. Eker's 8th wealth file confronts one of the most widespread and destructive beliefs in the middle class, that selling is somehow beneath you, that self-promotion is arrogant, that marketing your value is tacky, that truly great work speaks for itself. These beliefs feel noble. They sound like integrity, but in practice, they are the reason why brilliant, talented, hardworking people remain invisible, while mediocre people who know how to sell thrive financially. Here's the truth that the wealthy have internalized. Selling is not manipulation. Selling is communication. When you genuinely believe in the value of what you're offering, whether it's a product, a service, an idea, or your own expertise, then sharing it enthusiastically with others is not just acceptable, it's your obligation. You owe it to the people who need what you have. If you have a cure for someone's pain and you stay quiet about it because you're afraid of being seen as pushy, who loses? They do. Think about the most successful people in any field. Are they the most talented? Not always. But they are almost always the best at communicating their value. Oprah Winfrey built a media empire on her ability to sell ideas, books, and products she genuinely believed in. Elon Musk's ability to pitch a vision has attracted billions in investment and the most talented engineers on the planet. Every great leader, entrepreneur, and change maker in history has been at their core a masterful seller of a vision. Meanwhile, the brilliant introvert who is smarter than everyone in the room but won't speak up in meetings, won't pitch their idea, won't ask for the raise they deserve, stays invisible. Not because the world doesn't need what they have, but because the world doesn't know what they have. Invisible excellence is indistinguishable from mediocrity. The poor relationship with selling is usually rooted in a few core beliefs. 1. If I were really good, people would find me. This is the field of dreams fallacy. Build it and they will come. In the internet age, this couldn't be more false. The marketplace is noisy. Attention is scarce. The best product doesn't win. The best marketed product does. 2. Selling means annoying or manipulating people. Only bad sales does this. Good selling is about understanding people's problems deeply and presenting your solution clearly. 3. I don't want to seem desperate or needy. But there's a massive difference between desperate selling and confident, value-based promotion. How do you shift your relationship with selling? Start by reframing the identity. Instead of salesperson, think of yourself as a value communicator. Your job is not to push something on people. It's to help people who need what you have understand that you have it. Serve first, sell second. Develop your value stack, a clear articulation of the specific problems you solve, the specific results you produce, and the specific transformation you create for your clients or customers. When you can articulate your value this clearly, selling becomes simply a conversation about whether you're a match for each other. And finally, practice. Like any skill, selling improves with deliberate practice. Make 5 extra calls this week. Ask for the sale one more time than feels comfortable. Pitch your idea in a meeting. Put yourself out there on social media. Every rep makes you more comfortable, more confident, and more effective. The world rewards visible. Be visible. Wealth file number 9. Rich people are bigger than their problems. Poor people are smaller than their problems. There's a beautiful metaphor Eker uses in this chapter. Imagine your problems as a 10-pound weight. If you're a 100-pound person, that weight is a significant burden. It's hard to carry, it slows you down, it's always on your mind. But if you're a 200-pound person, the same 10-pound weight is barely noticeable. Same problem, totally different experience. The difference isn't the weight, it's the size of the person carrying it. This is the essence of wealth file number 9. The key to dealing with problems isn't to avoid them, it's to grow bigger than they are. And this distinction is critical because the pursuit of a problem-free life is not only impossible, it's fundamentally misguided. Every level of success comes with its own unique set of problems. The entrepreneur who makes $10,000 a month has different problems than the one who makes $10 million. But they both have problems. The question is never, how do I eliminate problems? The question is, am I growing fast enough to stay bigger than my problems? Poor people, Eker observes, spend enormous energy trying to avoid problems. They don't take risks because risks create problems. They don't start businesses because businesses create problems. They don't invest because investing involves risk, which creates problems. And so they remain in a state of enforced smallness. A life designed to be as frictionless as possible, which is also a life designed to go nowhere. Rich people, by contrast, actively seek bigger problems, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand that bigger problems come with bigger rewards. Jeff Bezos doesn't solve $1,000 problems anymore. He solves billion-dollar problems. And the reward for solving billion-dollar problems is, well, billions of dollars. The size of your income is almost always proportional to the size of the problems you're willing and able to solve. Here's a diagnostic question. What problems are you currently running away from? Because every problem you avoid contains a gift, a skill, a relationship, a piece of wisdom that would make you stronger and more capable. The sales call you're afraid to make contains the gift of confidence. The difficult conversation you're avoiding contains the gift of leadership. The investment you're too afraid to make contains the gift of financial intelligence. Problems avoided are lessons lost. Eker also challenges the common response to problems: complaining. When you complain about a problem, you're doing two harmful things simultaneously. First, you're focusing your mental energy on the problem rather than the solution, which makes it feel bigger. Second, you're broadcasting to the universe and to the people around you that you are smaller than your circumstances, which is an identity-shaping message you definitely don't want to be sending. Instead, develop what we might call problem agility, the ability to engage with problems quickly, extract the lesson, implement the solution, and move on. High performers don't dwell on problems. They process them efficiently and act. This is a trainable skill. Each time you encounter a problem, practice asking, what's the fastest path to a solution? Not, why is this happening to me? But, what's the next right action? The ultimate goal is to become someone for whom no problem is bigger than your capacity to handle it. Not because problems don't exist, but because you've cultivated the skills, the mindset, the network, and the resources to handle whatever comes your way. That's what financial and personal mastery really looks like. It's not the absence of challenge, it's the presence of capability. Wealth file number 10. Rich people are excellent receivers. Poor people are poor receivers. This one surprises people. We've all been taught that giving is a virtue and receiving is somehow selfish. But Eker flips this script in a way that is both counterintuitive and profoundly practical. If you can't receive, you can't be wealthy, period. Let's start with a simple test. Someone compliments your work and says, that presentation was absolutely brilliant. What's your first instinct? If you immediately deflect, oh, it was nothing. I had a lot of help. I kind of rushed it, actually. You just rejected a gift. You didn't receive it. And that inability to receive compliments, praise, help, money, and opportunity is one of the most underrated blocks to financial success. Eker explains that receiving is a skill, and like all skills, it can be developed or atrophied depending on how you practice it. Most people have been socially conditioned to feel uncomfortable with receiving. Culturally, we celebrate the giver and cast suspicion on the taker. It's better to give than to receive, we're told. And in many spiritual contexts, there's a virtue attached to self-denial and humility that subtly equates receiving with greed. But here's the mathematical reality. If you refuse to receive, you make it impossible for abundance to flow to you. Think about a river. Water, abundance, flows freely when the channel is open. But if you dam up one end, if you block the receiving channel, the flow stops. you can be the most generous giver in the world. But if you can't receive, you'll constantly be operating from a depleted state. You can't give from empty. This poor receiver pattern shows up in many disguised forms in our financial lives. The freelancer who feels guilty charging what she's worth. The entrepreneur who underprices his services because I don't want people to think I'm greedy. The employee who deflects compliments and then wonders why he never gets promoted. The person who says, "You don't have to do that for me," every time someone offers help, cutting off the flow of support that could accelerate their success. Rich people say thank you and mean it. When they receive a compliment, they receive it fully. Thank you so much, I worked really hard on that. When they receive money, they celebrate it. I am so grateful for this. When they receive help, they accept it graciously and look for ways to reciprocate. They don't deflect, minimize, or reject the flow of good things coming toward them. There's a deeper psychological layer here too. Poor receivers often struggle with a feeling of unworthiness, a subconscious belief that they don't deserve good things. This is Eker's money blueprint showing up again. If somewhere deep down you don't feel worthy of wealth, love, success, or recognition, your behavior will conspire to make sure you don't receive those things, even when they're being offered to you freely. The antidote is twofold. First, practice receiving small things fully and gratefully. When someone compliments you today, stop, breathe, and say thank you. That means a lot. That's it. No deflection, no minimizing. Just receive it fully. Second, work on your sense of worthiness. You don't have to earn the right to receive abundance. You are worthy of it by virtue of your existence. The universe doesn't give wealth to the deserving. It gives it to those who are prepared to receive it. Prepare yourself. Wealth file number 11. Rich people choose to get paid based on results. Poor people choose to get paid based on time. Trading time for money is the most common and most limiting financial arrangement in the world. The vast majority of the global workforce shows up, clocks in, does their hours, and collects their paycheck. And while there's nothing morally wrong with this arrangement, Eker makes a clear-eyed observation. It has a hard ceiling that makes true wealth almost impossible to achieve. Here's why. Time is finite. There are 168 hours in a week, and you need to sleep, eat, maintain relationships, and take care of your health. Realistically, you can sell maybe 50 to 60 hours of work per week before you burn out. So if you make $30 an hour, your maximum possible income is around $90,000 a year, and that's working yourself into exhaustion. Want more? The only option in this model is to get a higher hourly rate. But even at $100 per hour, you hit a ceiling. There's no scalability in selling time. Results-based income has no ceiling. A salesperson on commission can earn $50,000 or $500,000 depending on their performance. An entrepreneur can generate $10,000 or $10 million depending on the value they create and scale. A content creator, an investor, an author. All of these operate in the results-based world, where income is decoupled from hours worked and tied instead to value delivered. This is the lever that separates the financial trajectories of the rich and the poor more dramatically than almost anything else. The moment you find a way to get paid for results rather than time, you introduce scalability into your income, and scalability is the engine of wealth. Now, the fear is obvious. Results-based income feels risky because it's not guaranteed. If you're paid hourly, you know exactly what Friday's paycheck will say. If you're on commission, it depends on your performance. If you're an entrepreneur, it depends on the market. This uncertainty is real, and it's exactly what keeps most people tethered to the safety of the time money trade. But here's the reframe. The security of a fixed salary is largely illusory. You can be laid off at any time, no matter how good you are or how long you've worked there. Companies restructure, markets shift, algorithms change industries overnight. The person who believes their job is secure is often the most financially fragile because all their income comes from a single source they don't control. The entrepreneur who risks it all with results-based income might actually be more financially resilient because they've developed the skills, network, and mindset to generate income from multiple directions. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow to adopt this wealth file. Start small. If you're employed, negotiate for a bonus or commission structure on top of your base salary. Start a side project in your area of expertise: consulting, freelancing, creating digital products, investing, where your income is tied to outcomes rather than hours. Develop skills that are measurable and valuable: sales, marketing, coding, writing, investing. These are results measurable skills that translate directly into results-based income. The ultimate goal is to build income streams where you can sleep while your money works. Investments that pay dividends. Businesses that run systems rather than depending solely on your time. Content that generates ad revenue or licensing fees long after you created it. Every dollar you have working for you is an hour of your time that no longer needs to be sold. That's the path to genuine financial freedom. And it begins with the decision to be paid for what you produce, not just for the hours you show up. Wealth file number 12. Rich people think both. Poor people think either or. I can have a successful career or a happy family. I can be wealthy or spiritual. I can enjoy life now or build financial security. I can be rich or be a good person. These are the false dilemmas that live rent-free in the minds of millions of people, quietly limiting their lives in ways they've never fully examined. And Eker's 12th wealth file blows them up completely. The either-or mindset is a scarcity mindset in disguise. It's rooted in the belief that life is a zero-sum game, that you can't have two good things at once, because having more of one necessarily means having less of the other. And in some narrow, concrete situations, trade-offs are real. But as a general operating philosophy, either-or thinking is the hallmark of a life half-lived. Rich people think both. They ask, how can I have both? And that question, that simple but powerful shift, opens up solution spaces that either-or thinking makes completely invisible. How can I build a thriving business and be deeply present with my family? How can I accumulate significant wealth and live according to my values? How can I enjoy the present and invest in the future? When you ask, how can I have both? Your brain gets to work on finding the answer. When you accept either or, your brain stops looking. This mindset shows up most destructively in the false choice between money and happiness, or money and meaning. So many people believe at some level that pursuing wealth requires sacrificing what really matters: relationships, purpose, joy. And this belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They either pursue money joylessly, confirming that money and happiness can't coexist, or they reject money in favor of meaning, confirming that you have to choose. But look at the evidence. Study after study shows that financial stress is one of the leading causes of depression, relationship breakdown, and health problems. Having enough money doesn't guarantee happiness, but not having enough money is a significant source of unhappiness. Money is freedom. Freedom from anxiety, freedom from limitation, freedom to pursue what matters. Far from being opposed to meaning, financial freedom often enables it. The both mindset also applies to how rich people approach problems. When faced with a binary choice, do we cut costs or invest in growth? A both thinker asks, how do we cut costs in a way that actually frees up capital for strategic investment? When presented with, do I take the safe job or the exciting opportunity? A both thinker asks, how do I create financial security in a way that also allows me to pursue exciting opportunities? Developing a both mindset requires three things. First, awareness. Catching yourself every time you use either or language and pausing to examine the assumption. Second, possibility thinking. Genuinely asking, how could I have both, rather than dismissing it as wishful thinking. Third, creative problem solving. Being willing to design unconventional solutions that don't fit neatly into the binary choices you've been presented with. The universe is abundant. Life is not a zero-sum game. You do not have to choose between being rich and being good, between financial success and personal fulfillment, between security and freedom. These apparent contradictions dissolve the moment you commit to finding the both. And the wealthy know this better than anyone. Wealth file number 13. Rich people focus on their net worth. Poor people focus on their working income. Ask most people how much money they make, and they'll tell you their salary. Ask a wealthy person how much money they have, and they'll tell you their net worth. This is not a trivial semantic difference. It reflects a fundamentally different understanding of what money actually is and how wealth is actually built. Your income is a flow. It's money coming in. Your net worth is your stock, the total accumulated value of everything you own minus everything you owe. You can have a very high income and a very low net worth. Plenty of high-earning professionals are one paycheck away from disaster. And you can have a modest income and build a very high net worth over time through disciplined investing and smart financial management. Eker identifies 4 factors that determine net worth: income, savings, investments, and simplification, the ability to reduce your cost of living without reducing your quality of life. Notice that only one of those 4 factors is about how much you earn. The other 3 are about what you do with what you earn. This is why income is not the answer. How you manage income is the answer. The income-obsessed mindset keeps people on what Robert Kiyosaki calls the rat race, working harder to earn more, only to spend more, leaving net worth essentially unchanged. Lifestyle inflation is the silent killer of wealth. As income rises, expenses tend to rise proportionally. The bigger house, the nicer car, the more expensive vacations, all financed by the bigger paycheck, leaving nothing extra to invest and grow. Wealthy people are ruthlessly intentional about the gap between income and expenses. They protect and grow that gap. Every dollar that doesn't get spent is a dollar that can be deployed into income-generating assets, stocks, real estate, business equity, intellectual property. Over time, these assets compound. The wealthy person's net worth grows even when they're sleeping because their money is working. Here's a practical framework. Think of every financial decision in terms of its impact on your net worth, not just your monthly cash flow. That $800 a month car payment feels manageable relative to your salary, but over 5 years, that's $48,000 out of your net worth, plus interest, plus depreciation. A car worth $20,000 today might be worth $8,000 in 5 years. You've lost $12,000 in asset value, plus paid $48,000 in payments, plus thousands in interest. Net worth impact, devastating. Conversely, $800 a month invested in an index fund over 30 years at an average 10% return grows to over $1.8 million. Same $800. Radically different net worth impact. Start tracking your net worth monthly. There are free apps and spreadsheets that make this simple. List every asset, bank accounts, investments, property, business equity, and every liability, mortgage, car loans, credit card debt, student loans. Subtract liabilities from assets. That number is your net worth. Watch it grow over time. Celebrate increases. Investigate decreases. Make it your primary financial metric, not your paycheck. And remember, you don't need a high income to build a high net worth. You need discipline, patience, and smart decision-making. The janitor who invests consistently over 40 years often retires wealthier than the doctor who spent everything they earned. The game is net worth. Play the right game. Wealth file number 14. Rich people manage their money well. Poor people mismanage their money. Here's one of the most misunderstood truths in personal finance. Money management is not a function of how much money you have. It's a function of who you are. The habits, systems, and disciplines you practice with a small amount of money are the exact same ones you'll practice with a large amount, unless you deliberately change them. Which means the person who says, "I'll start managing my money when I make more," is operating on a fundamental misunderstanding of how wealth actually works. Eker's system is elegantly simple. Divide your income into specific jars, or accounts in modern terms, based on their purpose. He recommends splitting your money into 6 categories. The Financial Freedom Account, FFA, gets 10% of every dollar you earn. This money is never spent, only invested to generate passive income. This is your golden goose. The Long-Term Savings for Spending, LTSS, gets 10%. This is for big purchases like vacations, cars, and appliances, so you're never forced into debt for predictable expenses. Necessities get 55%, your rent, food, utilities, transportation. Education gets 10%, books, courses, coaching, anything that grows your mind and skills. Play gets 10%, and this one is non-negotiable. Eker insists that wealthy people have fun with money, and that guilt-free spending on enjoyment is essential for maintaining a healthy relationship with money. And finally, give gets 5%. Generosity is a wealth multiplier, not just morally, but practically. The specific percentages matter less than the principle. Every dollar gets a job. Money without direction is money that disappears. You know the phenomenon. You get paid, you pay bills, you buy some things, and somehow by the end of the month, you're not sure where it all went. This is not a mystery. It's mismanagement. And it happens not because you're irresponsible, but because you have no system. Systems are the difference between the wealthy and the struggling. Wealthy people don't rely on willpower to manage their money. They automate. Every payday, money automatically flows to the right accounts. The FFA automatically invests. The LTSS automatically accumulates. The Give account automatically donates. They don't have to think about it, decide about it, or resist temptation. The system does the work. This is financial autopilot, and it's extraordinarily powerful. Here's the limiting belief that keeps people from starting. I don't have enough money to manage. But Eker addresses this directly. Start with whatever you have. If you can only put $1 in your financial freedom account, put $1. The physical act of creating the habit of separating money, of seeing money accumulate in a specific purpose account, rewires your relationship with money. You stop seeing money as something that flows through your fingers and start seeing it as something you steward, direct, and grow. There's also a psychological element here. People who manage money well feel different about money. They feel in control rather than controlled by it. Financial anxiety is almost always rooted in feeling like money is happening to you. Your bills, your debt, your expenses are forces larger than you. A good money management system reverses that feeling. You become the manager. You're in charge. And people who feel in charge of their money make better decisions, take better risks, and build more wealth. Set up your system this week. Open separate accounts or use digital envelopes within a single account. Automate the flows. Review your numbers monthly. This single habit, practiced consistently over years, is the mechanical infrastructure of wealth. The philosophy is beautiful, but the system is where it becomes real. Wealth file number 15. Rich people have their money work hard for them. Poor people work hard for their money. In his landmark book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki describes the cash flow quadrant, the 4 ways people generate income: employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. The first 2 require your time and labor. The last 2 allow your money and systems to work for you. Eker's 15th wealth file is essentially the same insight stated differently. The ultimate goal of a wealthy person is to get to the point where they no longer need to trade their time for income because their assets generate more than enough. This is the concept of passive income, and it's worth unpacking carefully because the word passive is often misunderstood. Passive income is not effortless income. Every passive income stream requires significant effort, capital, or both to establish. Rental property requires buying property, managing or hiring managers, dealing with maintenance and vacancies. Dividend stocks require the discipline to invest consistently for years. A YouTube channel requires thousands of hours of content creation before it generates meaningful ad revenue. But once established, these income streams generate returns without requiring proportional increases in your time. And that asymmetry is what makes them wealth-building machines. The wealthiest people in the world have mastered the art of deploying capital and building systems that work without them. Jeff Bezos doesn't personally ship packages. Warren Buffett doesn't personally manage every stock pick. He builds systems, through Berkshire Hathaway, that compound wealth on his behalf. Their money is working around the clock in multiple markets, across multiple assets, 365 days a year. They sleep the same number of hours as you and me, but their financial sleep is far more productive. For most people, the path to passive income begins with a simple but profound shift. Start treating a portion of your income as a permanent investment, not a temporary savings. The moment you receive money, redirect a percentage, Eker suggests 10%, into an investment vehicle that will generate returns. This could be index funds, real estate investment trusts, REITs, bonds, small business investments, or a business you're building on the side. The specific vehicle matters less than the habit of consistently deploying capital into productive assets. The compounding effect of this practice over time is genuinely staggering. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. If you invest $500 per month starting at age 25 in a diversified index fund, averaging 10% annual returns, by age 65, you'll have approximately $2.65 million, having contributed only $240,000 yourself. The remaining $2.4 million was created by your money working for you. That's the power of making capital do the labor. The starting point for most people is debt elimination. High-interest debt, particularly credit card debt, is the anti-passive income. It's a cash flow drain that compounds against you. Before you can put your money to work for you, you need to stop your money from working against you. Use the debt avalanche method, paying off highest interest debt first, or the debt snowball method, paying off smallest balances first for psychological momentum, but eliminate high-interest debt as aggressively as possible. Then, build your financial fortress, an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. This prevents you from having to liquidate investments at the worst possible time to cover unexpected expenses. Once the fortress is built, the real wealth building begins. Consistent, disciplined investment in income-generating assets. Automate it. Forget about it. Let time and compound interest work the miracle. Your future self will be deeply grateful. Wealth file number 16. Rich people act in spite of fear. Poor people let fear stop them. Fear is the great equalizer. It visits the wealthy and the struggling alike. The difference is not that rich people don't feel fear. It's what they do with it. Eker states it bluntly. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting in the presence of fear. And the willingness to act despite fear is one of the most decisive separators between those who build wealth and those who dream about it. The fear landscape of financial growth is extensive. Fear of failure, fear of success. Yes, this is real and more common than people admit. Fear of judgment from others, fear of losing money, fear of looking foolish, fear of commitment, fear of change. Every significant financial leap you want to make has a wall of fear in front of it. The question is not how to make the fear go away. The question is how to build the muscle to act anyway. Eker introduces a powerful concept, the comfort zone. Your comfort zone is the range of experiences that feel familiar and safe. Inside it, you feel okay. Outside it, you feel afraid. And the nature of a comfort zone is that it never expands on its own. It only expands when you deliberately push against its edges. Every time you act despite fear, your comfort zone grows. Every time you retreat from fear, your comfort zone shrinks. Over time, the person who consistently pushes through fear has a dramatically larger comfort zone and a dramatically larger life than the person who lets fear make all their decisions. The neuroscience here is fascinating. Fear originates in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, designed to protect you from physical danger. But the amygdala doesn't distinguish between a tiger in the jungle and a scary phone call. It fires the same chemical cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol for both. This means your body's fear response is often completely disproportionate to the actual danger of the action you're considering. Making a cold call to a prospect is not life-threatening. Pitching an investor is not life-threatening. Starting a business is not life-threatening. Your amygdala disagrees. Your prefrontal cortex knows better, and your job is to let your cortex lead. One of the most practical tools for acting despite fear is what I call the 5-second rule, popularized by Mel Robbins. The moment you feel the impulse to take a bold action, count backwards from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move, literally. Physical movement interrupts the fear response and prevents your brain from overthinking its way into paralysis. This deceptively simple tool has helped thousands of people make the call, send the email, make the investment, start the business, and have the conversation that changed their financial trajectory. Another powerful practice, reframe failure. Rich people see failure as tuition, the price of education in the school of real-world experience. They fail fast, learn faster, and adjust. Poor people see failure as evidence of their inadequacy, which makes the fear of failure existential, because every potential failure feels like a referendum on their worth as a human being. Separate your failures from your identity. I failed at this attempt is a piece of data. I am a failure is a catastrophe. Only one of those is true. Start taking small daily acts of courage. Make the uncomfortable call. Submit the application even though you don't meet 100% of the requirements. post the content. Start the conversation. Each small act of courage deposits into your courage account, and over time, the balance grows. What once terrified you becomes routine. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable. And the financial rewards of consistently acting in spite of fear compound just as surely as money in a well-managed investment account. Feel the fear. Act anyway. Repeat. Wealth file number 17. Rich people constantly learn and grow. Poor people think they already know. We've arrived at the 17th and final wealth file. And in many ways, it's the one that ties everything else together. Because every other shift we've talked about today, in mindset, in behavior, in financial strategy, requires one fundamental prerequisite: the willingness to learn. Eker identifies a mindset he calls, "I already know." And it is, without exaggeration, one of the most expensive mindsets a person can have. I already know that. I've heard this before. This doesn't apply to my situation. That's basic stuff. These thoughts feel like intelligence, they feel like discernment. But more often than not, they're the ego defending itself against the discomfort of being a student, and they're silently sealing the ceiling on your potential. The wealthiest, most successful people in the world are almost unanimously voracious learners. Warren Buffett reads 5 to 6 hours every single day. Bill Gates takes a think week twice a year, a week of solitude where he does nothing but read and think. Elon Musk taught himself rocket science by reading textbooks. Oprah Winfrey credits her love of reading as the foundation of her success. These aren't people who had the luxury of learning because they were already successful. They became successful partly because they never stopped learning. The "I already know" disease has several symptoms. Dismissing advice from people who are more successful than you because they don't know your specific situation. Skimming business or self-development books, looking for the one new idea and discarding the rest. Attending seminars but not implementing what you learned. Feeling bored or superior in conversations where others are sharing ideas. If you recognize yourself in any of these, don't judge yourself. Just recognize it as a wealth-limiting pattern worth changing. Here's the mindset upgrade. Adopt what Zen Buddhism calls beginner's mind. A beginner approaches every subject with curiosity, openness, and humility. They ask questions. They take notes. They try things. An expert, on the other hand, especially an expert who has stopped growing, has already decided what they know and what they don't need to know. Beginner's mind is not naivety. It's the perpetual openness to learning something that could change everything. Eker makes a deeply practical point. The information and strategies needed to become wealthy are more accessible today than at any point in human history. There has never been a time when you could access the life lessons of billionaires, the investment strategies of hedge fund managers, or the business frameworks of world-class entrepreneurs for free or nearly free from your phone. YouTube, podcasts, Audible, library apps, online courses. The learning infrastructure for building wealth has never been more democratized. This means the gap between those who succeed financially and those who don't is increasingly a gap in willingness to learn, not access to information. The person who listens to business and finance podcasts during their commute is doing something fundamentally different with the same hours as the person who listens to entertainment. The person who reads 30 books a year is compounding their knowledge the same way an investor compounds their capital. Over 10 years, the difference is enormous. Build a personal development plan as intentionally as you'd build a financial plan. Commit to reading 1 book per month in the areas of mindset, finance, business, and personal effectiveness. Allocate Eker's recommended 10% of income to education, courses, coaching, mastermind groups, seminars. Find a mentor who has what you want and learn voraciously from their experience. Practice radical humility in every conversation. Assume there is something valuable you can learn from every person you meet. And perhaps most importantly, remember this. The person you are today is the product of everything you've learned up to this point. The person you want to become, financially free, confident, fulfilled, impactful, is on the other side of what you have yet to learn. Keep learning. Keep growing. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is filled, one lesson at a time, by people who never stopped being students of life. 17 shifts in thinking. That's all that stands between where you are and where you want to be financially. Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind isn't a magic formula. It's a mirror. And what you've just seen in that mirror is your money blueprint. The question now is simple. What are you going to do about it? Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. If even one of these wealth files resonated with you today, write it down. Work on it. Let it change the way you see yourself and your financial future. If this video added value to your life, please hit that like button. It helps more people find this content. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and drop a comment below. Which wealth file hit home the hardest for you? Let's talk about it. Your financial transformation starts with a single shift in thinking, and you just made 17. Now, go build the life you deserve. Thank you for your watching.